We all know that speeding on the road is prohibited and can end in tragedy. However, the police officer who recorded these images never expected the terrible ending to include a shootout, much less that the weapon would be fired by an army soldier. And unlike the battlefront in any armed conflict, the war fought in the streets does not always distinguish between sides or tactics, nor does it end with honorary victories or peace agreements. On the contrary, it almost always results in terrible and unpredictable outcomes. In the next few minutes, you will witness some of the most shocking episodes that confrontations between members of the police forces and the army can offer us, in which both have the necessary conditions to raise any discussion to unthinkable levels of violence and turn a simple confrontation into a real battle. Cases like these, where the limits between duty and survival become blurred, are more common than it seems. And today we tell you about them in this report. Don't move from the screen. We're starting now. The first case takes us straight to Interstate 84 east of Portland in Oregon, United States. It was August 29th, 2013, when 26-year-old officer Matt Zistel pulled over a frantic motorist for speeding in a black Cadillac. The police report confirmed that the man was caught driving 120 kilometers per hour in a construction zone. The officer proceeded to follow the car, ordering the driver to pull over. After a few minutes, the motorist stopped his car on the shoulder, and the officer positioned himself right behind to proceed with the routine check, but things took a slightly different turn.
Please sit back in the car for me. You were speeding, but right now I need you to... Sir, get back in the car for me now.
The images taken by the patrol car's dash cam show a middle-aged man wearing an army uniform, which revealed to the officer that he was a soldier. The man was identified as John Van Allen, 34, and after the incident, it was learned that he was traveling with 3 of his 5 children, who remained in the car at all times. Despite the officer's requests to stay where he was, the soldier advanced resolutely towards him, suspiciously carrying one of his hands behind his body. And that's how what was supposed to be a routine arrest soon became a scene of merciless violence, taking a dramatic turn in a matter of seconds.
I told you were speeding.
As he questions the reasons for the stop, Van Allen moves quickly toward Zistel, pulling out his pistol and firing without stopping. A few feet from the car, anyone would be an easy target for someone with military training like the veteran. But in this case, he is faced with an officer who is trained to act quickly in the face of such a danger, who then reacts immediately by returning fire, forcing Van Allen to go around the hood of the patrol car to protect himself, but without stopping the attack.
5326, shots fired! Shots fired! 5326, shots fired!
Interstate 84 had become a real battlefield. The extension of the passage barely allows you to see some cars approaching at full speed, but they cross the scene without knowing what happened. Zistel, in the middle of the shooting, was shot but avoided being riddled. However, Van Allen did not have the same luck. Much more exposed than the policeman, the soldier had no escape, and one of the shots hit him in the chest. Although the images do not allow it to be seen clearly, the wounded soldier runs to his car and accelerates, fleeing the scene at full speed. Meanwhile, inside the patrol car, the agent can be heard desperately asking for help and announcing the escape. The officers who responded to the call found Zistel suffering from a bullet wound that did not endanger his life and proceeded to go after Van Allen's car. Fortunately for the officers, the vehicle had not traveled much more than a kilometer from the scene of the confrontation, a fact that caught the attention of the agents who, when they cautiously approached the deadly black Cadillac, found a terrible scene. Inside the car, the driver lay lifeless as a result of the gunshot wound to the chest, and next to him were his 3 children, a 10-year-old girl and 2 boys, 13 and 15, who had witnessed minute by minute the dramatic death of their father. None of them were physically injured and were placed in the care of the Department of Human Services. In a subsequent investigation, the prosecutor of Sherman County in Texas, Wade McLeod, declared that Matt Zistel's actions were justified since he acted in self-defense after being attacked by Van Allen. The officer was treated for his wound and released. After the episode, he received paid leave until he managed to fully recover and return to his job. Van Allen's family said he was a loving father, former soldier and occasional pastor who moved to Portland from Pittsburgh to start over. For many veterans, it is difficult to return to the life they had before going to war, some of whom face serious problems with anxiety and depression that often expose them to substance abuse and violence. There are many police reports that denounce this type of behavior in public by soldiers. Such was the case of Dylan Tabaris, a 27-year-old Navy veteran with a history of drug use and mental illness, who was arrested for causing a disturbance in public. It all happened in Huntington Beach, California, near a business on September 22, 2017. The case was handled by Officer Eric Esparza, who, upon seeing Dylan wandering erratically around the area, approached him. As he approached, he found that the young man was somewhat disoriented and aggressive, but at that moment he imagined that he could easily control the situation, but he was very wrong. Next, we will see the dramatic episode recorded by several witnesses who were at the scene. The young man was intercepted by the officer, who approached him pointing his TASER gun at him. Upon seeing him approach, the police officer decided to shoot Dylan just as he lunged at him. A struggle immediately began between the two that gradually escalated into more and more violence. Tabares repeatedly hit the officer before the latter put him in a headlock, managing to overpower him and forcing him to retreat just before they both fell to the ground. But the young man did not seem to be willing to give up. The seconds that the fight lasted seemed endless. The agent raised his fists, unleashing strong blows on the veteran, who had been left lying on the ground, trapped by the officer's legs. Suddenly, Dylan seemed to grab something from the policeman's belt, who, thinking it could be his knife, immediately moved away to avoid being attacked. Dylan, who was still on the ground, managed to get up at the same time that shots began to be heard. Six shots can be counted, which the officer fired at the young man at a distance of just a few meters. The brutality of the impact can be seen in Dylan's body, who writhed unsteadily after each bullet. Without lowering his gun, the agent remained attentive, observing the young man, who surprisingly remained standing for a few seconds. At that moment, the officer fired a seventh shot that finally hit Dylan, who staggered backwards until he hit the wall of the store and then collapsed on the ground. The terrible scene left the officer breathless, agitated and nervous, but he quickly grabbed his radio, which had been left lying around, and called for backup, explaining the events. Meanwhile, from the ground, the young veteran was dying and writhing, emitting desperate screams with his last breath, until he finally lost his life.
Charles, suspect still moving, so I'll just got my gun on.
Our suspect still moving at gunpoint. Medics.
What's that? Ah, shit. It's 7 Charles, stage medics. Citizens reporting one of the employees that said 7-Eleven got hit.
7 Charlie, 10-4. 89 going in.
Reinforcements soon arrived and began the investigation, while Agent Esparza, despite confirming to his colleagues that he was fine, remained nervous next to Dylan's body. The investigation of the case revealed that Tabares had a series of previous arrests in California and had been released on parole on September 14th after serving 18 months in prison for a serious assault charge. The young man had joined the Navy in 2008 and served as an information technology systems technician aboard a guided missile cruiser and an amphibious assault ship, but was discharged from the military for drug use and possession in 2012. It was then that everything began to fall apart. In a short time, he lost his house and his wife filed for divorce. Tabares moved to California, and there he began to wander around a park in Huntington Beach, where he was known as the boy who lived in the woods. His family repeatedly sought help and he was treated in a psychiatric facility, but nothing seemed to get him out of his difficult situation. Shortly after wandering the streets, the incident that we have just seen occurred and ended his life. Former Huntington Beach Police Chief Robert Handy said that it was clearly an assault on the officer, who, fearing for his life, opened fire on the aggressor, and that it is the right of officers to shoot if they are in danger of death. Tabares's family filed a civil suit against the city of Huntington Beach to investigate the causes of the incident, and finally, a group of judges ruled in favor of the young man's mother, ruling that Officer Eric Esparza acted irrationally by shooting him 7 times. In addition, the judges ruled that the officer did not follow protocol on dealing with potentially mentally ill people before using force. Witnesses posted some videos on the internet days after the shooting. The episode generated different reactions from people, some supporting the officer's actions and others supporting young Dylan. According to court records, Tabares grabbed the flashlight from Esparza's belt, and that was what alerted the police officer and motivated him to shoot, although there were several disagreements about the latter. As we have seen in these cases, military personnel involved in situations against the law have had no problem defending themselves and attacking police officers. These reactions could be expected coming from men who have the training and experience to defend themselves. However, this was not the case with Richard Black, a 73-year-old Vietnam veteran who was caught in a confusing police scene. On the night of July 30th, 2018, Richard was sleeping in his home in the city of Aurora, Colorado, with his wife, his stepson, and his 11-year-old grandson, when an intruder violently kicked down the door. According to the report, the attacker, whom police identified as 26-year-old Dajon Harper, dragged Black's grandson into the bathroom where he violently attacked him. Like a terrible nightmare, the noise of the attacker and the screams of the child alerted Black and his stepson, who quickly got out of their beds and tried to stop the attacker. The veteran went in search of his gun and went to the bathroom, where he found the attacker next to his grandson. Immediately and without hesitating for a moment, Black shot Harper in the chest, ending his life. Meanwhile, during the altercation, Black's wife called 911 for help, and it was perhaps this call, the first indication that everything would go unexpectedly wrong, since they had trouble understanding what the woman was saying to them due to the screams and background noise in the place. Minutes later, the officers arrived at the house, finding a truly confusing and chaotic scene.
Please, he's in the bathroom drowning my grandson, I think.
Who is? What's his name?
A drug addict, their friend. He broke our house in.
See your hands, man. Is this the guy?
It's not me.
Where's the guy?
He's in.
Is this the guy?
Not me.
Who are you? Detain him.
Oh, shit.
As the officers walked toward the door, a man appeared in front of them with his hands raised. At that exact moment, 2 shots were heard from inside the house, alerting the officers. The situation was disconcerting for the police, given the little information they had and the number of people circulating. As they walked along the sidewalk in front of the house, the officers saw blood on the floor, which alerted them to the danger they could face when crossing the threshold. 2 of them, Sarant and Limbaugh, turned on their flashlights to illuminate the room, and at that moment they saw Black in a bathrobe and carrying a gun, slowly approaching them from inside the hallway. The officers, fearing being attacked, decided to act quickly.
Nothing. Gun! Gun! Drop the gun!
Let me see your hands!
Drop the gun! Hey! Get your hands in the air! The guy in the robe's got the gun.
Got it? You got it?
Yes! Drop the gun!
Drop the gun! Is he down? Is he down?
He's down!
Okay.
He's down.
Move forward a little bit.
Don't reach for that gun! Do not touch the gun!
When you get close.
All right, somebody else, glove up.
From the door, they ordered Black to drop the weapon, but he continued walking toward them, gun in hand. The veteran did not seem to hear them, much less imagine that the officers would act against him. It was then that Limbaugh, fearing for his life and that of his partner, opened fire on Black, firing 5 times in a row. 3 of the bullets hit him directly in the chest and back, leaving him badly wounded in the middle of the living room. Voices could be heard from inside the house, so Officer Sarant, following protocol, asked from the door that those inside the house identify themselves.
Okay, I got guns. You got it? Hey, cover me. Got it?
I got it. Hold on, I'm going in.
Go in.
Anybody else in the building, make yourself known! Who else is inside?
Moments later, as an officer escorted the frightened boy out of the house, wrapped in a towel, he let him know that Black was his grandfather and that he had saved him from his attacker as they passed by. Sarant told investigators that it wasn't until then that any of them realized Black was actually the one living in the house. Officers later found the shooter, Dejon Harper, dead in the bathroom. The police report confirmed that the intruder did not know the family and that the incident was an unplanned assault. Police headquarters confirmed that they had received previous calls reporting Harper, who was causing a disturbance in the area. Aurora Police Chief at the time, Nick Metz, publicly said that no charges were filed against the officer who shot, but that he was placed on administrative duty with pay. The 17th District Attorney's Office and Denver Police continued to investigate the case to clarify the causes of the tragic outcome, while the reasons why Black did not follow orders to drop his weapon remain a mystery. One hypothesis is that he did not listen to the instructions because he had a significant hearing disability. The prosecutor's conclusion was that the shooting was justified under Colorado law, since the officers proceeded in that way because their lives were in danger. That same night, Aurora Police issued a statement confirming that they would begin an internal investigation into what happened since the investigators of the case chose not to press charges. Meanwhile, the final police report confirmed that Harper, the attacker, had a history of armed robbery and other crimes. Toxicology tests revealed the presence of methamphetamine and marijuana in his system at the time of his death. According to the district attorney, the man had just been released from prison and was celebrating a birthday with family and friends that night in an area near the veteran's home. Black's family, devastated by the news that no criminal action would be taken against Officer Limbaugh, hired a lawyer and were waiting for the case to be heard by a judge. However, the family's legal representative confirmed that they will not be pressing charges against the police. Once again, these cases leave us perplexed by their unexpected outcomes. Situations of extreme violence unleashed in a matter of seconds demonstrate the danger that police officers face when they patrol the streets, and even more so if they encounter military veterans on the other side who have a lot of experience. A violent dispute between these two groups can be very complicated, considering that both have battle training and are generally highly trained people. Situations like the ones we have just seen force agents to act quickly, because thinking twice can end their lives and those of innocent civilians. We have reached the end of the report. We say goodbye until the next one. If you want to continue watching content similar to this, do not hesitate to play the following video. See you soon.